play. So yes, I don't need to see you.
Okay.
If you don't want your video on, that's fine. I'll mute all the mics just because sometimes background noise happens in your space, and I don't want you to feel stressed out that I can hear it or other people can.
Right on.
There is a chat function, so I mean, we can throw anything's going on, you can throw a note in the chat. I'll keep it open.
Okay.
I will make these poses as accessible as possible. So, you know, the practice we're moving through is all going to be on the earth tonight. We'll be sitting and laying down.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, you can choose a couch or a seat for any of the seated poses if that feels more comfortable in your body.
Okay.
And you'll notice I'll give lots of like cues and instructions about where you maybe want to be feeling stuff, so that if the shape I give you, and I'll always give more than one option with the shape anyways, but
Okay.
if the few things I offer aren't working, you'll have enough direction to find what will work,
Okay.
and take what you need.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the most important thing we're doing is being still and breathing, and really that's allowed to look how it looks.
All right.
It's one of my favorite ways to teach. It's just like very indulgent. You know, we're each meant to sort of find our own thing. So we are going to start in a seat.
Okay, I'm just going to find myself a seat.
Yeah, and I'm going to move that back just a little so everybody can see. There we go. And so one of the things you can think about, seated sometimes is actually quite challenging for a lot of our bodies, unless we do a lot of openings. So you can use like a pillow or a cushion underneath your seat. And if you do that, you almost want to sit on it in a way that it kind of like tips you forwards, and you can see it's like, it's tipped my pelvis forward, so that when I want to fold, I'm going to have a easier time and more spacious time folding. So the first pose we're actually going to start with, very simple. The legs will come wide, and they can be anywhere from, you know, very wide. You can have them anywhere from maybe 2 feet between, anywhere between those two extremes. You want to be able to relax the feet, the knees, and we want this sense for the first few breaths of lengthening the spine. You're just going to move your body forwards a little bit. And a little can be an inch. Some of you will have lots of mobility in the hamstrings, right? Some of us not so much. And then when you get to that sort of point where the body starts to stop you here, you're just going to allow yourself to get heavy. So one thing to know is that if you have anything going on with your knees this evening, you could use something to find a little lift and keep them bent. You could also choose for the time we're here to actually keep one knee bent. And I'll cue us when we're halfway between the time we're going to hold the pose. So if you choose to have a bent leg, you'll just in the second half actually bend the other leg. We're trying to get a stretch into the groin, the inner hips, the glutes a little bit, outer hips, and even into the legs and hamstrings here. Right? And it's sort of a nice idea. Those things are going to feel different in all of our bodies. So once you start to fold forwards, if it feels okay, you can let the head hang heavy, which will add the stretch deeply into the back body, especially the upper back and the neck. Right? You want to soften the muscles in the face and the jaw, the feet can relax. Right? You could use pillows as well to come forwards onto hands or forearms if you'd like, or the arms just relax forwards and the elbows softly bend to the earth. Right? None of these poses should be work in the body. The work is actually just in us being able to stay in stillness and sometimes discomfort. And I'll let you decide, right? You can either just let the breath be almost an afterthought, the body can just breathe on its own. Right? If you feel like you need some sense of like neutrality in your energy in your body tonight, you could find like a even breath, 1-to-1 ratio. So the inhale and the exhale are the same length and intensity. But if you're really working to calm, that's when we would lengthen the exhale. And it's not aggressive, but if you sort of could count 4 in or 5 in, you'd maybe think of a 6 or 7 or 8. Count, exhale. Right, and you don't really do anything you don't want to do. If you don't want to work on the breath, you just land. Right? You could stay focused on being present.
You gonna be able for a while?
You could let the mind wander here. So there isn't really a right or wrong way to be in stillness, right? We just sort of get to, take what we need, right? If at any point it's too much intensity, right, you just come out of the pose for a few breaths, right? And then you come back into it. And we want to start to notice too, the body will have habits of like grabbing hold of tension. You might notice already you've started to like wrinkle the nose or the forehead or squeeze the muscles around the eyes. And we're sort of looking to unravel those habits, right? Undo them. So when you catch yourself engaging, the shoulders rising towards the ears, the body sort of starting to take tension on, you just take a few breaths and you try to find your way into relaxing again. And again, just do a check-in, right? Notice if you started to do any work. Right? Most of what we're trying to get out of this practice comes through surrender, right? And that sense of sort of relaxing and surrendering through the muscles, it doesn't need to be all at once, right? It can be incremental. Right? Just little bits of relaxing here, of softening. Just a few more breaths. And just like slowly the hands sort of walk back towards you. You just restack the spine. You can kind of let the chin fall to the chest. And sometimes the best part of these intense, deep stretches, and especially if we don't feel anything when we're in the stretch, is the few moments after. Because you might feel where the body needs to relax and let go. Sometimes there's just a little bit of energy moving, which is kind of nice. So we'll shift just a little. Two options with this one. The legs can stay wide. If you'd like now a little break for your left knee, I'm the mirror image of you. You're going to bend the left knee and left foot comes somewhere around the inner thigh. So we're actually going to just take like a gentle twist towards that right foot and we're going to fold. Sometimes these like folds over the legs are actually nice with like, I'll put like a pillow and it's almost completely supporting me here. So it's really restorative. Less intense through my back. If you're looking for intensity though, no ambition, but you do then leave the body space to just fold and be heavy. Yeah, and one thing to note here, if you are dealing with any issues or pain in the low back, all of these folds can actually be taken using a wall. So you would come down to your back and you could actually use a wall here. So we're already one pose in, but you could actually now bend your left knee and bring the left foot around the inner thigh And the back or the legs here would be supported by a wall. And that would really protect the low back if there was anything going on there. Right? And if none of that works, it is absolutely okay to find something that does, as long as you can breathe and be present. Right? And again, maybe the breath just finds its own way. Right? Maybe you work with that sort of neutralizing breath, even in and out. Or maybe the exhales get a little longer than the breath in, this sense of really sort of anchoring, of finding a sense of calm. It's a great technique to use in moments of stress or agitation. Just a long, slow exhale a few times. Right? And same as before, right? If you need space, we just don't want to react too quickly. But if you notice you need a break, you just restack the spine, you take a few breaths, and then you can move back into the fold. And I'm going to get my pillow for this one. So about a minute here. There shouldn't be any pain. Discomfort is absolutely common. Right? Notice if you're engaging around the ribs and core. You want the sense of relaxing through all the muscles and in the body getting really heavy. We can sort of fall more fully towards that left leg. It's just a few breaths now. And we're going to stay on this side for this next pose here. So you're going to just lift a little. And that left shoulder is actually just going to press back in space a little. And you can use even left hand like lightly on the left thigh. And now you're actually letting this right side of the body fall towards the right leg. And it works with the arm sort of inside. It works with the arm outside. Sometimes I land my elbow on my shin, so I'm not touching my knee. And I'll actually, if I don't feel like the stretch in my head, I'll actually catch my head in my hand. Right, so we're looking now for this deep stretch along the left side. We want to feel all these tiny muscles along the ribs starting to open and relax. The depth of this stretch would take your left arm overhead. So again, I'm the mirror image of you. And there's no pulling, you just sort of let it hang behind the head, and that extra weight will really intensify the stretch through the low back on the left side. For some of us, right, that one is not nice, or some days it's lovely and some days not so much. Not as long here, so let's say 6 or 7 more breaths. Sometimes exhales are a little harder in these like lateral side body stretches, so sometimes a good time to really focus on finding a steady inhale. Out. Yeah, last couple of breaths. And then we slowly come out, and it's nothing aggressive. We just, spine gets restacked. Once you're upright, you've taken a couple breaths of stillness, you might notice you sort of feel like you need some gentle movements. That's okay. And then we'll move into the second side. So again, legs could be wide still, some of you, right? We're twisting now towards the straight left leg. Some of us, a little relief now for the knees would bring that even, right? And again, we're folding either directly towards the leg. Again, that opportunity maybe to have a support you know, so that it's not so much falling forwards, a little more restorative with the pillow. And I didn't say this on the first side, but this bent knee should feel safe, you know, sometimes even needing to support that knee. Ooh, that's nice with the pillow. It is nice. So it's kind of like one of these practices where, yes, you know, something is meant to unfold, right? But so is absolute care for the body, right? No stretch is worth, you know, pain, discomfort, or an injury. And so try to take everything safely. And then we can sort of trust this ability to, you know, let go and relax a little. You notice if you're holding tension in the face, the jaw, neck, or shoulders. Are you engaging anywhere through the leg, abdomen, or low back? And again, right, opportunity to just relax, to let the mind wander, or even to stay focused. You can use that even breath, 4 or 5 count in and out. Or again, if it's one of those moments where you really need to anchor, find a sense of grounding, maybe you really take those slow exhales. Right? And a chance in stillness, especially to notice how they make you feel. Like here for a little while still. So 4 or 5 more breaths still. And then a slow restack of the spine. We're going to find that last stretch here. So that side body opener. So the left arm can sort of fall inside, outside the left leg, right? We want the left side falling towards the leg. You could have a pillow or blanket here for some support. You could, or maybe elbow lands on the shin, so nowhere near the knee. That's really important. You could catch the head in the hand. And the right hand can always stay on the thigh. A lot of times that's really a deep enough stretch, or you might take the arm overhead. I'm not here as long, so maybe 7 or 8 good breaths left here. You might notice sometimes a little harder to find a really, you know, full, all-encompassing inhale, so you could work on that if you'd like. Body heavy, falling towards that left leg. A few more breaths. And then one more time, restacking. And taking a couple breaths once you're lifted. So we'll do a couple of my favorite stretches here. And again, I'm going to give you two options. So I'm going to start with the version seated. And if you're just feeling like you want to be laying down on your back now, come down to your back. I'll give you the cue in a moment. Or if the seated one doesn't feel right in the back or anywhere else, you'll come down to the back. Still a beautiful stretch, just a little different. So from seated, hands will come behind you. Feet are about mat width apart, or about 1.5 feet, and you just kind of let the knees fall from side to side. So we're just trying to find a little loosening of the hips. They don't need to move far. Like you could sort of like lift and find a little bit more sort of mobility. Good. And then what we're going to do is actually let the knees fall to the left, right? And you can see my right knee is inside that left foot, and you're actually going to follow that twist. So the knees went left, the body went left, and you're turning to face the back of your mat. And you can stay propped up on the forearms, whoops, or you can find company for a second there. You can stay propped up on the hands. You can find the forearms. Some of you will have enough mobility in the spine to come all the way down to the earth, right? From the back body, you're going to know right away if that's the stretch for you, right? The feet are going to be wide, and you're actually going to let the knees fall to the right. Right? You could take the right ankle on the left knee to engage, but that's really intense through the low back. Not so nice for a lot of us. And you can always just notice where the stretch is, right? Shifting the hips, right? You could stack the knees in the twist. Right? So from the other side, it would look more like this. So there's lots of ways to impact where the twist lands. You know, nice sort of surrendering twists like this are, you know, really grounding and anchoring. They're also kind of internalizing, right? It's a good way to just sort of drop into what's going on. So the most important thing is that you can be in the twist. I'm going to use a pillow just to make that accessible. Right, and rather than thinking about trying to get somewhere, we really want to be able to land and in some kind of easy way, almost forget, you know, the fact that we're trying to be in a shape and just become present, right? Engage in the experience without trying to affect it or interrupt it. Right. Again, you know, go looking for tension. Notice if you're holding an expression on the face, you know, engaging or squeezing to the forehead or nose. And what's happening with the shoulder, muscles around the ribs and into the abdomen. Take about 2 minutes here. And just over a minute now. So really, now that we know we're in this last minute, you can sort of do one last scan. One last noticing of what you need, and one last chance to decide if this is a moment for just being, or if there's something you want to do with the breath to have an impact, right? Slowing the exhales, or even just steady full breath. Just a few more now. And if you've decided to do this twist laying on the back, you don't need to come up to a seat, right? You can just bring the knees through center. If you are sort of twisted and folded to the earth, it's a deeper stretch than you think. So you just want to be really aware as you come out of it. It often is a lot more intense when we come out of that one. And from the earth, if you're laying on the back, you could let the knees fall softly side to side. Right, once you come to a seat, right, we can do the same thing. You might notice it might feel nice to move actually a little slower this time. So we're sort of starting to find this sense of, you know, anchoring, really settling the energy down, which is a really nice way to end the day. So, right, and then next time the knees fall to the right, right, you can twist the body. Notice if you need to shift the hips at all to make this accessible and safe for the abdomen and low back especially. And then maybe twisting to the earth, you can see I have a pillow, so I'm actually just bringing the ground up towards me a little bit here. Really careful about where you are with the neck, right? Most common would be gaze to the left. For some of you, gaze down, and gaze to the right, really intense, but maybe accessible here. Right, from the back body, you'd be dropping the knees the other way. Right, and laying on the back, you just want to be aware. So knees now would come to the left, right? The shape you take in the legs is going to have a different impact on whether it's in the front body, the abdomen, the low back. So you just try to be aware where you set the hips. Ideally, the shoulders are grounded. And as we sort of relax into these shapes, it starts to become an act of taking up more space. Right? Expand a little. So we're here for a little while. Make sure it's safe. Make sure you're comfortable. Notice if it's a moment to stay present, focused, aware. Is it a moment to follow the breath, to lengthen it, to make it even, or to just let it fall away and relax here. 2 minutes here. Muscles in the collarbone to chest and upper back, especially here as well. Notice if they're sort of gathering up tension. Make sure you're still surrendered. Last minute. Just take a few more breaths. You'll slowly come out of the twist. And if you're laying on the back, you're going to stay. And if you are upright, once you've taken those few breaths to really let the intensity of the twist kind of move through and out of the body. And we'll come down to the back to take our last couple poses here tonight. So from the back, right, the knees can be bent, feet on the earth. My heels are sort of up and under my knees. This can be done with the legs, fairly long. You're just going to bring your right ankle to the left thigh. If it is too much to do that, or if there's any issues with the knees, right, that left leg can be long, and the right foot, so it would look like this, would come to the inner thigh, and the knee just falls out. You might even move the foot out a little bit, and you'll get the stretch along the front of the body. Right, if you have space to take that right ankle to the left thigh, you'll go there. Option here, if you want a little intensity, you can lift the leg. Right? We are going to hold this one for a while, but you can add some intensity for 5 or 6 breaths. You could even clasp the hands around the left thigh. So my right hand is moved between my left and right thigh. You can find the clasp. You can relax the left calf, left foot is relaxed. Right? And if you are engaging the stretch, it's just a few breaths just to kind of find a little bit of depth. Right? But then eventually we want to find somewhere to land where, again, we can just allow gravity, the stillness, and our willingness to relax to actually do all of the work. If you want a little work in the shoulders here, you could like cactus the arms. My elbows are bent. Sometimes that just adds a stretch into the shoulders. Not necessary. Sometimes I'll even take my hands above the head and just sort of lay one on top of the other. And if you're used to sort of getting somewhere when you stretch, it can be really hard just to be, right? To be present, to breathe, stop trying. You have to trust that in the sort of absence of sensation, sometimes something is actually happening. If you need something to do, find your breath. Right? Steady in, steady out. Nice calming breath. About 90 seconds here, just almost 2 minutes actually. And again, at any point, right, we can take relief if there is intensity. Right? These poses are meant to be healing. Right? And it doesn't mean they aren't uncomfortable, but it does mean we're not meant to be injuring or risking anything by being in these shapes, right? Time here just a little while longer. Again, notice if anything needs to shift, settle, soften. A few more breaths. If you've sort of made a shape with the arms, you can relax them down to the side. And when you're ready, the right foot can release. And either both knees bent or both legs straight. And then when you're ready, moving into the second side. So left ankle can land on the right thigh. You could extend the right leg long, left foot to the inner thigh, or even left foot out wide a little here. And if you do want a little intensity, you can lift the legs. Arms could be relaxed, or you could use the hands to clasp behind the right thigh. If you did activate the stretch, make sure over the next breath or two that you let go, releasing the right foot to the earth if it is lifted. Now, you don't need to take any work in the arms, but it might feel like it enriches your practice here. So maybe, something shows up. We're here for a couple of minutes, right? So make sure you're comfortable. Maybe present, or maybe the mind needs to wander. Even when we are trying to sort of make progress in this practice, we want it to be compassionate, no forcing, no fighting. About a minute and a half here. And that last check. Right now that we're almost done, be fully surrendered. Is that even what you need here? A few more breaths. And then when you're ready, releasing the left leg. Knees bent or legs straight, take a few breaths. So we'll take one last pose here. Ideally, we'll come up to a seat, but just notice it may be one of those times where you'd rather just be grounded, especially because for most of us doing this at night. So you're going to bring the bottom of the feet together and the knees would fall out to the side. Right? This is one of those shapes as well that may need a pillow under the knees. Right? If it feels okay to find a little more intensity, You can take this pose seated. So the bottom of the feet would come together in a seat, and you would actually fold over the legs. So this will now add a little more stretch into the low back. For some of us, mid back and even neck and shoulders here. And often a little more intense than in the hips and the groin. Not always. So just know, like, options are just that. One isn't better than the other. They are just unique and different, right? If you did this class on different days, the choices would be different, right? Even different times of the day. So this is sort of our last landing here. Right? And what you started with may be different than what you have arrived with here. You might be ready to focus, to land, to be present. You might have been focusing all class, and now it's time to just let go. Let the mind dream or wander or relax. Right? No judgment, no reaching. Just take this last couple minutes exactly as you're meant to. And just 4, 5, 6 more breaths here, depending on how slow you're breathing. And if you're seated, you can restack the spine. Right, wherever you are, the bottom of the feet will press together. You can use the hands to help the knees. Maybe just a little movement here, maybe not needed. Right, if you're seated, you can just find an easy seat. And if you're laying in the back body, you can stay or you can come up to a seat. And you just want this sense of a long spine. Wherever you are, there's just a gentle tuck of the chin to the chest, and just take a few breaths. And you want to notice how you're feeling and what you're feeling. Quality of the body, of the breath, and of the mind. Right? We can start to notice how these sort of things, being still, breath, these deep stretch, how they impact us. We can start to take them into our everyday lives. Especially the breath. So if you notice over the next week, that you have those moments of anxiety or agitation, think of those even breaths in and out, or even a few big breaths in with a slow exhale to help yourself ground and settle. And keep in mind also, these classes are being loaded to the Facebook page of the HAC. You can find the link on their website. So you can also do this class again. There's a couple up there already as well. Anyways, I hope you all got something you needed and something that will absolutely go with you through the rest of your day. It was a pleasure. Feel free to turn your mics on to ask a question. If you're still laying and you're just going to stay laying, don't worry, I will end the meeting in a minute, so you can just do your thing there if you want. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you. And, oh, you got your mic on.